Good day, everyone. Eric Olsen from Helps on Helps YouTube Live today, March 31st. Welcome. Glad to have you here. My name's Eric. I've been an attorney for 46 years. Founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm. We do a lot of things. Our number one mission is to protect seniors from debt collectors. We do that under a law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which provides that you're represented by an attorney. Debt collectors can no longer call or send you demand letters anymore. They have to leave you alone. So that's what Helps does. We represent seniors who owe debt, also disabled persons. It doesn't matter how old you are. It just depends on what your source of income. Your Social Security is protected, your pension's protected, your IRA, your 401k, any forms of retirement is protected. People find out about Helps when they decide to roll. They give us the creditors or collectors they owe money to. We send them what's called a cease and desist letter. Law passed in 1978 called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. That provides if you're represented by an attorney, collectors can no longer call or send you demand letters anymore. They have to leave you alone, and that's what Helps does. We represent seniors so they don't have to deal with collectors. We also educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. And that's one reason we have these YouTube Live videos Monday through Thursday to talk to prospective clients and clients, assure them why they're going to be okay and answer their questions. You can put them in the chat feature. I'll be glad to answer them. Glad you can hear me okay. And good to have you here. The topic for today, that is going to be deals with the first thing I'm going to read. It's called Bankruptcy versus Helps. I'll read you a note that someone wrote in. They said, "I hope this message finds you well. We are reaching out to share our financial situation to seek your guidance." This person's from Illinois. It doesn't matter where they're from, but I'll read it. Okay. As seniors facing some challenges, we currently have only viable path towards forward appears to be filing a Chapter 13 bankruptcy due to the equity we have in our residential property, which we have owned since 2004. We would greatly appreciate any advice or insights you might have regarding our options and the best way to navigate this difficult time. Thank you for your understanding. And Helps was started because a lot of seniors simply didn't need to file bankruptcy, or they couldn't afford to file bankruptcy. They would come in and I explained to them how their income was protected and they didn't need to file bankruptcy. But I realized that when they went home, creditors were going to call and make their lives miserable. So Helps was started so that we could protect seniors from debt collector harassment. So when a person enrolls in Helps, we send a letter to your debt collectors or your creditors to whom you owe money, and under the law, they have to leave you alone. They can't call or send you demand letters anymore. And so that's what Helps does. We represent seniors and disabled persons who owe debt, people on retirement income, so they don't have to deal with debt collectors. And this person was worried about, bankruptcy. They consult with a bankruptcy attorney. There's two major types of bankruptcy for consumers. There's Chapter 7, which is a typical bankruptcy where you simply wipe the debt out and start over again. And there's a Chapter 13. Now, Chapter 13 is a type of bankruptcy where you make payments over a period of 3 to 5 years. Chapter 13 is filed for a couple reasons. One might be, let's say, for example, you're behind on your house payment and you're being foreclosed. Under a Chapter 13, you can stop the foreclosure, and then you have 3 to 5 years to catch up on the missed mortgage payments. And under a Chapter 13, there's a trustee, and you pay him the money, and then he pays creditors with it. Chapter 13 might provide that you pay some of your unsecured debt, or it might not. It depends on the case. Or, if you're buying on a mortgage, you make a payment to the trustee, and he would make payments to catch up on the missed mortgage payment. So, Chapter 13 can be good in some ways, but in this instance, this person went to a bankruptcy attorney and he told him, hey, you can't file regular bankruptcy because you have too much equity in your home. See, different states have different laws that protect the amount of equity you can have in a home that would be at risk from a creditor taking it. It depends. Some states have an unlimited equity, like Texas. Some states, like California, has between $600,000 and $700,000 in equity in a home, depending on where you live, county where you live. And so it varies from state to state. Some states have really small equity. So let's say the state had a $20,000 equity. and you had a home that you owed $100,000 on, it was worth $200,000. Well, if it was worth 200 and you owed 100, you have 100,000 equity. Okay, and if the exemption is only 20,000, then you've got 80,000 equity over and above the exemption. Now, a bankruptcy attorney is also going to count in the cost of sale, so the equity might only be 70,000 or 65,000 because it costs something to sell the home. But so you go to a bankruptcy attorney and he's going to tell you you can't file regular bankruptcy. File regular bankruptcy, the trustee is going to take that home and sell it, and they're going to pay you they're going to pay off the mortgage, they're going to pay you 20,000 in your homestead, and then you use the rest of the money to pay your creditors. And after your creditors are paid, if there's anything left over, they're going to give it to you. Well, you don't want that to happen. You've got this home. You want to stay in the home. And he said, then the attorney could say, well, you can file a Chapter 13. But under a Chapter 13, you're going to have to pay your creditors what they would get under a regular bankruptcy, which would be like $65,000 to $80,000. So if you had $50,000 in debt, you might have a Chapter 13 payment of $1,000 a month. Well, if your income's only $2,500 and you got a $800 house payment, that would leave you living off of $500-$600 a month, which you couldn't do. So Chapter 13 would be out of the picture. Well, here's the deal. As I've explained before, it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors, if they were to sue you and get a judgment, to try to take your home. They don't take your home. It's theoretically possible, but it just doesn't happen. And I know that after filing 30 or 40,000 bankruptcy and helps with tens of thousands of clients. Creditors don't go after people's homes for a number of reasons. One reason they could file a 13 to stop it, and maybe they own the home with a spouse and the debt is only against one of them. Maybe someone else is on the home with them. And there's just a lot of different reasons why they don't go after people's homes. So this person that wrote in that I just explained, they went to an attorney, said you could file Chapter 13, and attorney probably told them what their payment was, and that scared them. So they contacted us and they said, is there anything else you can tell us? And I'm telling you, yeah, you may not even need to worry about filing a Chapter 13 for a lot of different reasons. Chapter 13 could be like getting into the briar patch. Although one nice thing about Chapter 13, sometimes people will call us that are in Chapter 13. They finally realize they can't make the payment, and they think they're locked into it. Chapter 13 is voluntary. You can have it dismissed at any time, or if you stop making the payment, then the court's going to dismiss it. So for a lot of reasons, for seniors, Chapter 13 could be a mistake. They could find themselves paying the debt when they really don't have to pay it. So let's say you own the property free and clear. Maybe one of your kids was helping take care of you and they were contributing to household expenses. If you added their name to the property as joint owners with survivorship rights, then even if someone were to sue you and get a judgment, when you pass away, the property go to the child. And any judgment against you, a lien would disappear, the property would be in the child's name, and they would get the property without there being any probate. So there's a lot of things that can be done, to protect a home. And, filing a Chapter 13 to protect a home, when it's not in default, when you're current on the payment, could be a big mistake. Okay? So that's what we're going to tell this person. We're going to give them some information. They can make a decision for themselves. Like that's why I started helps, because so many seniors would come in and I knew they simply didn't need bankruptcy, and I'd tell them that. But once again, the creditors could call them and make their lives miserable. So it helps under federal law, if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors have to communicate with the attorney, not you. And so when the people enroll in helps, the creditors leave them alone and they can live lives of peace, not worrying about this stuff. So I just talked to someone before a few minutes ago. I think they were from Alabama. It doesn't matter where they're from, but and this person was really worried. Okay, we have clients. Sometimes we call them our worry work clients, and we say that not to criticize anyone, but almost a term of affection. Helps was founded especially to help seniors that really worry, because we don't want you to worry. And this person was worried because their only income was Social Security, and they had received a settlement on a case from a year or so ago for $30,000. Now, first off, we didn't even talk about this, but a lot of states have laws that will protect settlement for personal injuries or different types of settlement cases. And, Alabama may have protected that money. We never got into that, but they took the money, gave some to their daughter, to their son. Anyway, the money is all gone. It's gone. And now they're worried that they're getting sued and that a creditor could investigate the case and try to go after the daughter. And after talking with them, I explained that that's simply not going to happen. Creditors don't get into detail, and you've spent the money. It's history. You don't need to worry about it. You could always envision some, strange scenario where there could be a problem. But, after filing 30 or 40,000 bankruptcies and, having helps with tens of thousands of clients, I know when the likelihood of a problem is next to zero, it's not worth talking about that or stressing about that. And that's what the case with this person. They had nothing to worry about. And part of the situation is they're going to be moving out of state anyway. So I explained to them that, a judgment in one state is not good on another state unless that judgment creditor transferred the judgment to the new state where you move to. And they simply don't do that. They don't have time to do that. Had nothing to worry about. So, if you're stressed about this stuff and worried, call helps. That's what we're here for. We don't want you to worry. And if you have a question, you can put it in the chat feature. I'll try to address it. We don't want you to worry. And I may need to leave early again today, about 40 minutes after the hour. Monday I need to do that, but not next week. So I got stuff to talk about here. Okay, so this person came on with a comment on one of our videos and said, if I can no longer pay my credit card, should I send them a letter explaining my situation and why I stopped paying? Well, you can, but you don't really need to. And if they get the letter, they're just going to throw it away. They don't care about that. Creditors, debt collectors and creditors don't care about why you can't pay the debt. They just want you to pay the debt. You got to understand, they're under no obligation to tell you your rights. They don't have to tell you, well, by the way, your income is Social Security and a pension. You really don't need to pay us. Okay, we can't do anything to you. We can see you can get a judgment. We can't collect. No, they're not going to tell you that. All they have to say is, we're a debt collector. Any information you give us can be used for that purpose. So writing them and explaining why you can't pay, no. Now, if they were to call you on the phone and you explain, hey, I'm not going to pay, I'm on Social Security, I guess you could say that. Don't need to. Once again, I don't think that's going to register with them generally. Because their job, the collector's job is to collect the money. They're going to try to lay a guilt trip or do whatever they could to try to get you to pay the money. So we don't get political here at Helps. But I do like to, inform people when I see comments or things on our webpage or on our YouTube videos. I like to correct when people make comments that are really incorrect. So this person made a comment, and they did it so good that I thought I'd just read it to you. A lot of seniors are worried about their Social Security because of the current politics. So this person wrote in and they said, if people would only listen to what Elon Musk and Donald Trump are actually saying. So I'm not getting political here, I'm just reading this comment, he says. Instead of listening to the talking heads on the news telling you what they're saying, you wouldn't be concerned that they're going to take your Social Security away. There are people in news organizations that have an agenda and they want to frighten people into believing certain things so they can push their agenda forward. Please be diligent and actually seek out what people are actually saying, and you should be comforted by the fact that they're not going to take it away, and they can't. And I read that and I said, well, that guy's right. Your Social Security isn't going anywhere. Only changes to Social Security is uh, they want to cut out any fraud. Okay, people taking Social Security that shouldn't be, and they want to prevent. Uh, and so I guess they cut some employees out, and is that going to impact Social Security's ability to handle people? I don't know. It may or may not. I'm not sure the details of what's being done. They may hire some people back. I noticed that when they first did something with Social Security, they cut out people's ability to make a change to have your Social Security go to a different account if you call them on the phone. And I heard I read something that the reason they did that is they found out that 40% of the changes for Social Security to go to a new account were coming from fraudsters. They were calling in, imitating that they were the person receiving the Social Security. They wanted to go into a different bank account. And then they would have that person's Social Security go into that bank account that they would have control of. And the person actually receiving the Social Security wouldn't get it, and then they'd call Social Security and say, what happened? And the Social Security is they said, we're going to cut out people making changes over the phone. They're going to have to do it some other ways. But I've already heard they backed away on that, and they're implementing some more strenuous requirements so that to try to prevent fraud by people calling in, by fraudsters calling in to try to have your Social Security go to a different bank account. But I wouldn't worry about that. We've got tens of thousands of clients, and I just never heard of any of our clients calling us saying that they had a problem with a fraudster getting access to their Social Security and get it into their account. But if they were to do that, that could be undone. You wouldn't lose that money. So anyway, so this person says, I am confused. Okay. Now I'm going to skip that one. It's too long. This person, what year do you turn a senior? I'm 60 on Social Security due to a bank injury. Am I protected? Once again, your income is protected regardless of what your age. If you get Social Security, pension, disability, VA benefits, doesn't matter how old you are, it's protected. You could be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, whatever. It doesn't matter, based on your age. Okay, I will read this one. Here we go. I'm confused. This and other videos say you don't have to declare bankruptcy, just stop paying these debts because your Social Security or your Social Security disability is judgment proof. But what happens if your financial situation changes? You quit driving so you no longer need to pay a car insurance, maintenance, or car payments or gas. Your medical problems go away, so you're no longer having to pay those bills. Your pets pass on, so you don't have to that expense. Suddenly you have 500 or more left over at the end of the month. Can you save it, or do you have to keep spending it so the creditors can't take it from you? I've watched a lot of those senior living videos, and they are really helpful, but I can't find the answer anywhere. So if you have Social Security or Social Security disability monies left over, what do you do with it? If you haven't filed a bankruptcy, I would think your creditors would keep checking to see if your situation has changed. Go past a certain amount. I don't think that's the case. Am I correct in assuming that? Or is there anything you managed to say, or is there anything you managed to save from Social Security or Social Security disability safe in your bank account? Okay, pretty good question. So we talked a lot about that, how if someone were to sue you and get a judgment, and it's no guarantee you would be sued, okay, but if they did, twice the amount of your federal benefits that you get from a federal source like Social Security, VA pension, that amount deposited in your bank account is protected automatically from garnishment by your bank, regardless of what other funds are in there. So if you got $1,500 in Social Security, $3,000 is protected in your bank account. And this person's saying is, okay, so I spend that, my money, I never have more than $3,000, but all of a sudden if my expenses go down and I start saving some money, can they take that extra money? Okay? Well, no, and I'll explain why. When we talk about your money being protected twice the amount, that is automatic protection by your bank without you having to do anything. Okay? So if someone sued you, got a judgment, and they garnish your bank account, your bank can check your account and they see where the money came from. If it came from a federal source, they times that times two, and they protect that without you having to lift your little finger. Okay? But let's say you had more than that in there. They could hold up the excess. That doesn't mean that it's not protected. It's just not protected automatically. You could file what's called a challenge of garnishment or claim of exemption and show the court where that money came from. And if it came from protected source like Social Security or VA benefits, then or pension, then it's going to be protected as well, just not automatically. Now, if you're worried about it, you don't need to worry about it unless someone sued you and got a judgment, and then unlikely they're going to even try to garnish your bank account. Remember, when people enroll in HELPS, we send a letter to the attorney that sued you, letting him know that your income is protected, and they usually don't attempt to garnish. But if they did, you could file what's called a challenge to garnish for a claim exemption and get that excess money released. But if you didn't want that to happen, I suppose you could take the money and you keep it cash. You could put it in a postal money order. You could put it in a cashier's check. You could put it in a preloaded debit card. No one could get at those types of funds. As long as you keep it less than twice the amount in your bank account to which it's deposited, protected automatically. But no, there's no reason why you can't save money. You got to realize too, over time, if someone gets a judgment, they just kind of give up on trying to collect from it. So, but once again, it's still protected as long as you can trace the money to a protected source like Social Security. Okay? Okay. My Social Security disability is just over $1,100 a month. My credit card debt is around $13,000. Person from Iowa contacted us. We're going to call them back, and if they can't afford to pay the Social Security, their $13,000 in credit card debt, we're going to tell them they can stop paying it. They don't have a lot of money. They can use that $1,100 for their rent, for their food, for their utilities, for their basic needs. They can stop paying the credit card debt. And then Olsen helps. We're going to send a letter to the collector or the creditors or collectors to whom they owe money. It's called a cease and desist letter, and they're going to leave them alone. We're going to tell them that you can always call helps with your question. We don't want you to worry. That's what we're here for, to always answer your question. See, when people enroll in helps, you're a client, not just one time, literally forever. So if you have an issue or question or concern, you can pick up the phone and call us no matter off. So I told this good person who called this morning, she was really a worry word. She was just really, really worried and wanted to worry about everything. And I said, you don't need to worry, but don't feel bad. If you ever do worry, pick up the phone and call us. And eventually you'll realize that you don't need to worry anymore. I know that from experience. We deal with people that worry. And I said, you can pick something else to worry about. You don't need to worry about this debt. They're not going to come after you. And if they did, they're not going to be able to do anything. We're going to tell you what to do. You don't need to worry. So this person calls us from Kansas. And it looks like he's the grandson. And his grandmother is in a lawsuit being sued by Citibank. My grandmother only has Social Security as an income and right now is stressing over the lawsuit. Grandma doesn't need to stress. My understanding is, of course, that the income cannot be touched even if it's distributed by a Social Security appointed representative, which is probably him. I request your assistance in getting this resolved as our first hearing is on April 4th, this coming Friday. Well, she's not going to need to go to that hearing. We're going to call him back and say, Grandma doesn't need to go. And we'll say, would you like us to talk with you and your grandma together since she's worried about that? And if he says yes, we're going to talk to him together or grandma alone. A lot of times we'll talk with a parent and a child, or a grandparent and a child, or a grandparent and a grandson or granddaughter. And we're going to explain to her why her Social Security is protected, why she doesn't need to go to court. The only reason she would need to go to court is if she's going to fight the lawsuit if she doesn't owe it. But she's probably going to say, I owe the money, and say there's no need to go to court. They're just going to get a judgment. But until, I don't want a judgment. Well, you don't need to worry about a judgment. They can't take your Social Security. It's protected for the reasons I've already explained. And then they're not going to take your other assets. You do not need to worry. We're going to send an email her about what happens when a HELPS client is sued. It's got links to videos from HELPS that talk about how your income's protected, how you don't need to worry about a judgment. So, and we're going to tell her, you can always call if you're worried about this. You don't need to worry. Okay, that's what HELPS is here for. So you can stop worrying. So we're going to help the grandson. And then I'm going to tell the grandson, thanks for watching out for your grandmother. You're doing a good job. Okay. So this person contacts us from North Carolina. I have a debt with a financial service, Allied Financial Service, for about $1,900. I am retired on Social Security. I stopped paying about 3 months ago because I can't afford to pay. Also, when I make payments, they apply the whole payment to interest. Well, you don't need to enroll with Allied Financial Services. Your only income is Social Security. If I talk to this person, what's the first question? If you would listen to me, you know what it'd be. It'd be, when you signed up for Allied Financial Services, did they tell you, by the way, you don't need our help because your only income is Social Security, it's protected, no one can take your money? And they're going to say, no, Mr. Olsen, they never told me that. Well, why didn't they tell you that? If they would have told you that, you wouldn't have enrolled with them and they wouldn't be making any money off you. These debt management companies, with few exceptions, don't tell debt collectors. I'm talking about the for-profit or non-profits, either one. It's it's not very common for they ever tell a senior, by the way, your income is protected, you don't need our help. Instead, they sign them up, making payments, some of them putting some seniors into utter poverty, making payments they can't afford to pay, and they don't need to pay. Okay? So if you're signed up with a debt management program and you listen to us and you realize, hey, I don't need these people, they never did tell me my income was protected, you can cancel. You can call them on the phone and cancel and ask them to return any money that they're holding for you. You can you can also ask them, why didn't you tell me when I enrolled that my income was protected? I've been cutting back on my medicine, cutting back on my heat, cutting back on my food to make a payment when now I've learned that I don't need to pay this debt and I could be protected from collectors harassing me. Why didn't you tell me that? See what they say. Person contacts us from Ohio. I'm under financial hardship due to loss of my mother in a tragic accident. I need your help. No one did a GoFundMe page. Now I have one credit card that sold to a debt collector. Everything is a mess. I am a senior, disabled, handicapped. I don't owe anything. Social Security is the only income. I would like to join HELPS. Well, we're going to call this person back and answer the questions and enroll them in HELPS if they want to, so they don't have to deal with these debt collectors and tell them they can stop worrying. And the first thing we're going to tell them is, you're really not in a mess because no one can take anything from you. Now, I know it may seem like a mess, but once you understand your rights and how your income is protected, and you realize you have an attorney to protect you from these collectors harassing you, and you can always call someone with your questions, you're going to realize you're not in a mess, that you're going to be okay. And that's what I want you to listen. That's what I want you to understand if you're listening to me now. If you're new, call us. So this person contacts us from Pennsylvania. we represent people in all 50 states and people that live, Americans that live out of the country. Well, doesn't matter where you live. I'm 68, and last year I turned my 5 major credit cards over to American Debt Relief due to financial struggles. I bet they never told her or told this person that their income was protected when they turned them over. Of course not. So, but the Discover Card company still turned that debt over to a lawyer instead of working towards negotiation. I've now been sued to go to a hearing on April 21st. I'm now struggling to make my mortgage payment due to exhausting my IRA and having to make a monthly payment to American Debt. I need the money that I'm paying to American Debt to be able to pay my upcoming mortgage payments. What can I do about this? You can stop paying American Debt is what you can do. And it was probably a mistake to use your IRA funds to pay towards your old credit card debt. You know, I talk about that. That's a mistake credit seniors can do. If you have an IRA that you've saved up for, don't use that money to pay old debt. That money is to use for your needs, for your food, for your medicine, for your utilities. Don't use it to replace money so you keep up on your credit card debt. Because if you have a bunch of credit card debt, most of it's interest, and those IRA funds are protected. If you didn't pay the credit card debt and they were to sue you and get a judgment, they can't touch your IRA or your 401k. Is completely protected. Don't use it to pay an old debt. You don't use your, and so I'm going to tell this person from Pennsylvania, you don't need to worry. You can use the money to pay your mortgage payment. Are they going to, if someone sues you and gets you a judgment against you, you're going to take your home in Pennsylvania? No, they're not. No matter where you live. Every state has a homestead exemption, or there's federal laws too that protect a certain amount of equity in homes. But it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to go after people's homes. They don't do it for a gazillion different reasons. Okay? The clue is if you sign up with a debt management company or debt, and these guys, they're everywhere. Anyone can get into this business. Anyone. Okay? There's probably, I want to say scores, there's probably hundreds of different. Certain states are regulated, so they may not operate in every state, but they do anyway because states there's so many of them, they have a hard time suing them to keep them out of their state, and then they structure their fee agreement so that they get paid in the beginning, and after you've been for a while, you finally realize they're not helping you and you quit. They've already been paid. They collect a lot of money. But the way you know they're a fraud is because if they never tell you when you enroll that your income is protected because you get Social Security, that's the first sign that they're a scam and a fraud. They don't tell you the complete truth. This person contacts us from Georgia. About a year ago, I borrowed money for work on a house, on an old house. I call it consolidate an old debt. During the transaction, I found there was a lien for about $5,000. The problem was I needed the money to pay for things that I had borrowed for on that first place. The house was a lot of things wrong with it. I take care of my mother who's older. I'm not sure what his question is, so it's kind of hard to answer that. Sometimes I write these the first time I read them. Person contacts us from Texas. I'm having trouble making monthly payments. I am a month behind on my house payment, and it's been hard making other bill payments. My wife's health is bad, and we are getting new bills for new debts. Just overheads making ends meet. Well, they live in Texas. If you're getting Social Security or pension or disability or VA benefits, your income's protected. You don't need to pay your old debt. You can use your money to make your house payment. They're not going to take your house. Interestingly enough, Texas is one of the states that protects all the equity in your home. Okay? So even if someone takes a judgment against you, they're not going to take your home. And if they got a judgment, it could be a lien on your home, but there's a procedure in Texas where you can sell your home, get the lien removed, so you can get all the cash from it. Just over our heads making ends meet. So, if you stop paying the creditors, then maybe the debt's going to be below your head. So you're going to have that money to pay for your electricity, for your food, for your medicine, to help your wife, and your house payment, deal with the car. If you stop paying the credit card, you're going to be okay, which you can do. I like this one. They start from Ohio, and they start out, they just say, I'm just worried, period. Can't afford to pay off my credit card debt. Can't afford my medical copays. Worried sick that Musk will slash or eliminate my monthly Social Security payments. Not going to happen. Your Social Security is not going anywhere, as I've talked about repeatedly. And I found your wonderful and very informative videos on YouTube. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm 69 and my Social Security is my sole income. So I really need some reassurance. No specific request for assistance at this point in time, but I wanted to sign up in case I need your help in the future. Well, bless your heart. You don't need to worry about the credit card debt. And what about your medical copays? Well, if you're on Medicare, it pays for 80% of your doctor bill, 80% of your hospital bill. You may have a copay, but if you don't have it, you can pay your regular doctor, what you can afford, $10, $20 a month. I don't see doctors cutting people off if they're paying something towards them, especially their regular physicians. If someone were to sue you and get a judgment, they can't take your Social Security. Twice the amount is protected. And we're going to try to assure you why you don't need to worry. Hopefully this video will do that. Help you so you don't need to worry. Yeah, I'm going to end in about 2 minutes here. But tomorrow will be a full hour. This person contacted us from Washington. I have a credit card bill through my bank, and I pay $100 a month for my Social Security income. I've been doing this for over 2 years and would like to stop, to quit. I would like to stop I'm struggling with rent, food, and other debts. Am I able to just stop paying this debt? I think it's now down to $7,000, but not sure. So this person they bank at a bank, and they have a credit card with a bank, and they're paying that payment. And they want to know, can I stop paying my bank? And I guess the next question is, and stay with the bank. The answer is yes, okay, with a few exceptions. If you bank at a credit union and you owe the credit union money, if you're going to stop paying your credit union, then you're going to want to stop. You're going to want to change to a different bank account from the credit union. Credit union, whether you realize it or not, you signed a form allowing them to take money out of your checking account to pay the credit card debt. Now, if you stop paying, they're not going to do that next month. They're going to wait a couple months before they do that. That'll give you time to change your Social Security, go into a new account where you don't owe money to the new bank. Okay. Now, banks don't use the same forms as credit card companies do, except for Truist Bank. They do. So that's really an exception. But if you bank at Wells Fargo, US Bank, Chase, whatever, and you have a credit card with them, you could still stay with the same bank if your only income is Social Security, and you stop paying that credit card bill. They're not going to take money out of your bank account to pay that credit card debt. They're not going to do it. Okay? So thanks for participating today. We didn't have many questions today, which is unusual. Okay. Tomorrow, maybe more. We always ask you to push the like button if you haven't already, and you can always make comments, and I'll try to address those tomorrow. If you have any questions, you can call us toll free 855-435-7787. 855 helps us or helps us. We don't want you to worry. So call if you have any questions, and I will see you tomorrow. God bless.